Okay, some years ago, you may not know this, but I went through a little bit of a dry spell, probably more than a dry spell in my own marriage and relationship. So I came home one day, and my wife was all very serious, and whenever she get that serious, it kind of unnerves me. And she calmly and coolly said, "Hilton, we need to see a counselor." Now that actually pulled the rug from under my feet. Because if any one of you know me, I research relationship, the dynamics of relationship, how they start, how they work, how they can be fixed if they're broken. And here was I thinking, hold on, what is happening here? But she was deadly serious. So during that time, you could recognize that I was very, 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 I felt small, who counsels the counselor? I was thinking, no, I'm not into that area. I do coaching. Who coaches the coach? And it reminded me of a session we had with Dr. Willard Harley, who told us of his experience, either when he was doing his master's in marital therapy or his PhD, that the head of that department that taught that subject came one day and told them, he wants them to be the first to know. He doesn't want them to hear it, by the way, that he's going to be getting a divorce. Now, that is a real biggie, because the very person who teach the therapists how to help couples with their problems wasn't able to fix his problem, so he was going to get divorced. Now, on a serious note though, it really shocked me into seriously thinking about how to apply the very things that I'm teaching. And I realized through that, although it's simple, it's not always easy. And I want to share with you, I don't know where you are. You might, be having ongoing challenges and arguments and fights. You might be living in a home that you're uncomfortable, having a go at each other over and over and over again. You're tired, you're knackered, you've spoken. You might have even gone to therapy and nothing seemed to be working. You're living in a house where the shadows are never lifted. And sometimes, you wish you had made a different choice, you wish you can move out, and sometimes divorce ideation comes to your mind. Well, I have actually happened on a series of principles, things that you can do. You don't even need to go to therapy. That could actually help you, because it helped me and it helped people that I support, from the worst extreme situations where there was, in this particular couple, there was infidelity, there was cheating, the woman was so angry and upset and frustrated, she actually pulled a knife on the husband. Fortunately, no blood was drawn. And now their relationship is even much better than before the infidelity, the cheating. Now, what are those principles? Now, there are about 5 different stages and principles, and I'm going to go through them, and, if you can go away and implement them, and you will see a major difference. If you want me to support you, I'm happy to support you. Just simply click the link someplace on this page, send me a message, or you can even book a session with me. So what are the principles? The first thing is that you have to clearly decide in your head. Right now, you might be on the fence. You've been in this relationship for so long. Is it time to hop off? But there are lots of things to consider. Maybe you have children. Maybe your finances are tied up. Maybe you're thinking about what people are going to say. But you have to, perhaps, in the calmness of your sober mind, although your situation might be tumultuous, you've got to decide in your head, do you really want to do this? Save it. Once you have a clear decision, and of course you need to assess the situation. Not all marriages and relationships can be saved. Some beyond repair. Some should not have even started in the first place. And some should not be saved. If you have a situation where someone, gets involved in criminal activities, some people have mental health issues, some people addicted to substances, there might be abuse in some cases. These relationships, those issues have to be dealt with before you could deal with the action. And in some cases, it is much better to go your separate ways. But in the vast majority of the cases, in 90-something% of the cases, there could be some resolution, and happy resolution too. So once you've decided that you're going to take full responsibility to make this happen, you don't even need your spouse. You know, there is a myth going around that both of you have to come to therapy, or have to go together, or have to be in agreement. Actually, not really. The thing is, when the relationship started, it started with one of you. One person was interested in the other person, and the other person may not have even thought of you that way. The other person might not have even considered you in that. And sometimes it starts where the other person don't particularly like you in that fashion. However, you alone, or the other person alone, started the relationship. It started to make advances towards you. It warmed up your heart, and from there, you know, feelings and emotions got stirred, and romance happened, and the rest is history. So the point I'm making here is that you alone can affect the dance of the relationship. You alone can change the course of the relationship. You can trigger, you have influence, you have agency. So once you have decided in your mind you want to do that, the second thing you need to understand is that you need to take the responsibility. I heard this guy, I forgot his name. He has a YouTube, I'll link to it here. And he uses the term 95-5. In other words, on a ratio of 95 to 5%, you are going to take the responsibility, 95% of the responsibility, to make the relationship change, grow, develop, take a U-turn, and for you to have love and romance that you deserve. 95-5, you have to take that responsibility. Once you have made that decision, then you have to do what I call a ceasefire. Right now in the news, I've heard that there is a ceasefire in the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. They have been going at it for years, and somebody have brokered this ceasefire. And by ceasefire, I mean stop hurting each other. Yes, you have been fighting, you've been saying things that are hurtful. There is escalation. Somebody says something, you get triggered, or she or he gets triggered. They lash out at you, and then there is righteous indignation, and you lash out at them, and it escalates to a blowout. What you need to do is to decide that you're going to call a ceasefire. You may not even call it that way. You're going to stop saying things, doing things that intentionally hurt and destroy your spouse. Even if you think it, you are going to pause. And there are ways you can do that. So in fact, I've just finished the book, The Argument Deactivator. You know, how to stop your fights from blowing up. I'll link that in the description below if you want. So you need to call a ceasefire. In your mind, you are not going to be unnecessarily hurting your spouse. You're going to stop the arguments. You are going to stop even using the withdrawal, the stonewalling, the criticism, the contempt. It's not going to come from you. And on the back of that, you need to neutralize the attempts of your spouse to poison you, to trigger you, to make you feel so angry, resentful, and have this bitterness towards them. You need to neutralize. You know, like in war, they have to go through the field, and they would have to detonate or deactivate the bombs that have been put out, the mines that have been put out. Similarly, you need a way in order to neutralize, to detonate, to deactivate the bombshells that your spouse is going to give you. And you find it even with poisons. You know, if a snake bites you, the venom, it couldn't be very deadly, and you need to get to a hospital, someplace where they will give you some anti-venom that would neutralize the toxins. If you want to find out more, please contact me to neutralize, how to go about neutralizing the attacks, the triggers that your spouse sometimes cause you to feel. The next thing is to adopt some framework. When I said you take the responsibility, I actually mean that you yourself have to change. There has to be some mental shift. You need to become a different person altogether. You need to take on a different persona, a different human being. And you need to act from what is sometimes called your inner locus of control. The way I like to say it is that you need to actually begin to act from your core values and not be allowed to be triggered, to be angered, to the worst part of you. And better said, you need to act from the higher side of you, the higher self of you. That's the situation and the place that you need to act from. And from the time you begin to act from the better part of the higher self, if you're a Christian, your Christian values, even if you're not religious, if you act from your core true values, you will find that there would be a tectonic shift in your relationship towards the better. The next thing that you need to do is to adopt some mental frameworks. And basically what this means is that you begin to realize that the way your spouse is acting, the angry outbursts, the criticisms, the stonewalling, the complaints, all of these are symptoms of something that is happening within them. And I dare say they mask the vulnerable need that person has. So you need to look beyond the presenting behavior and try to find the need of the person. And that is so important because it also brings me to a point that I think needs to be cleared up. That all the fight that you're having, your spouse still wants you to love them. Now, you won't believe that, do you? If your spouse is still in the house, is still having interaction with you, is still in the marriage and the relationship, that spouse still wants you to love them. And by the way, they also want to love you, but they are going about it using the wrong strategies. That's counterproductive. When I was teaching years ago, they used to say that the worst behaved child needs the most love. They're acting the way they're acting because they need love. It brings to mind the saying that some people say that there are two types of animals that are most dangerous. The animal that is hurt, that animal is a very dangerous animal. And the animal that's hungry, starving, that animal also is very dangerous. And similarly, when you begin to see the need, looking beyond the words, beyond the behavior, beyond the outbursts, beyond the triggers, you will realize deep within your spouse and yourself is hurt, feeling invalidated, unseen, or maybe they are responding from feeling controlled, disrespect. What you want to do is to show your spouse that you want to give them the love that they want. Actually, that's what you're in the relationship for. You want to give them the love that you want, however, not in the way that they are demanding it. You need to teach your spouse how to get the love that you're happy to give them, not necessarily in the way that they're demanding it. And then to use our analogy of war, after a war, there needs to be repair. Both of you have been hurting each other. You have been wounding each other. And so there is a lot of past hurt. There's a lot of damage that have been done that you need to repair. So there must be repair and reconciliation, which involves forgiving and forgiveness. Forgiveness is not for the person, it's actually for you. And finally, you need to build, you need to recreate. That relationship that you once had has been damaged, and you need to now forge, recreate, reconstruct, regenerate a totally different relationship. And two of the most fundamental things that would help you to do that is something called kindness. So what's kindness? I like what Stephen Studsney says. Stephen Studsney says that kindness is wanting the happiness of someone and being willing to help that person get that happiness. So it's not just wanting, is the desire to help that person to get what you want them, what you want to see them have, which is being happy and being fulfilled, etc. And the second one is compassion. Compassion is, again, Stephen Studsney says, it's really about seeing the distress, hardship of someone and having a desire to do something about it. And with these, ladies and gentlemen, you will be surprised that when you use these in a relationship that is failing, in a relationship that has gone the wrong way, that's derailed, in a relationship where there is a lot of resentment, a lot of bitterness, a lot of anger, you will find that there will be a softening, that there will be a change, that there will be a wearing away of the resistance, and ultimately you can get the love that you once had, and even better. Like I said, I do mentoring and coaching, and if you want some support with that, just let me know. Talk soon.